represent the Asian and Chinese community. Let me share a few stories. First, I heard some people in Chinatown told me that my mom was getting old and become 老糊涂, 老糊涂. What that means is stupid, forgetful, on old age. Another person say, it never occurred to me that my mom have Alzheimer's. Even I thought they have something wrong. So it's a lot of things they don't not sure. Another say something, friends suggest us to relocate our home because they thought my mom's craziness caused by the bad feng shui. Okay, so there are lots of misunderstanding that show you what the people living in our community, they're using other way to express the frustration, but never really want to admit this is something wrong. Thank you.
In Brazilian community, what we can listen more is they don't accept this disease because they think how somebody they love very well, love so much, will forget them. So this is the most thing they usually to say, you know. But after the session, I think they can understand that they can help them, and especially make these people as a very important person in their community, in their family. So they can understand a little bit more and make this a little bit easier to them.
In my community, includes both people with IDD, and IDD stands for intellectual and developmental disabilities. And it also includes the people who support and care for them in a variety of settings. And I think it's a little different world for me, for many people who don't know. People live in group homes, residential settings, they can live on their own. They're in day programs. So there are many different settings that people who have an intellectual or developmental disability are living. And so with this group of people, with people with IDD, dementia is a real abstract term. People don't really fully understand it. And what we have found that we really need to use much more tangible, concrete examples of and using people who are living with dementia that they may know, for instance, a family member or housemates, or even on TV. Lots of times I'll say, did you see that person on TV? What did you think about that? And so that's much more easier for people to understand. I have a friend who's in his 70s with an intellectual disability, and I could use my mother who had dementia as an example of what it means to be living with dementia. The other thing that around caregivers, and this is the difficult thing in the world of ID, is that we're so used to helping people grow and develop and to be the best they can be, that this idea of dementia is really one of disbelief, and people are not set for that. They weren't planning for this. And so that can be something that is really difficult for especially older family members and many people have children with Down syndrome who may get Alzheimer's disease at younger ages. So this is a difficult thing, and it's a lifelong commitment to their children. So that also is a hard thing to kind of wrap your neurons around. So I do think that, this understanding about providing supports, and I mean, the supports we provide for people are in the field of intellectual disabilities is a lot of choices, a lot of getting out in the community and doing things like this. And this doesn't always work for people who are living with dementia. So I think that that's the most difficult thing for a lot of people, is just trying to understand this almost basic change in philosophy. Bonnie, what do you think?
Well, I agree absolutely with everything you said, Kathy. I do want to piggyback kind of on 2 points. The first is your comment about using concrete examples. Many times we feel that we don't even use the word dementia. And someone, I think it was Michael Kincaid, just put into the chat that there's some cultures that don't even have a word for dementia. And I want to have a shout out that sometimes we don't need the word, or the word isn't the most important thing. The most important thing is to get people to understand what is going on. And that is often through examples. And so when we work with folks in the intellectual disability world, we try to talk much more about the symptoms and the behaviors and less about the word itself. And then the last thing I wanted to add is that thinking about the word dementia in the IDD community, we have to revisit it very often because we are learning so much more every day. And if we don't do that, people's information is going to be outdated. And I know it's moving fast in every field, but as Kathy will tell you, in this field, every day we're learning something new. So thank you.
I am a Dementia Friends champion. I have been one since 2019. A lot of our Black and Brown families and friends were afraid of the word dementia, the word Alzheimer's. In the old days when my mom was around, she passed away from dementia. We never called it dementia. We always called it old age disease. Where you would take a family member, not put them in a home, but put them in a separate room in their house. And that's where they would stay majority of the time. And it was kind of downheartening. So by being a Dementia Friends champion and listening to Beth when she first introduced it to me, and then being able to do the information session so that I can inform other Black and Brown people in the African American communities about what dementia was, what Alzheimer's was, and showing them that this was something we no longer needed to be afraid of. We needed to embrace it, to understand what was going on in the world around us, where we could share it with others, so that other families would get to know what dementia was, what Alzheimer's was, and how to look at it through a different light through their family members that were getting older, wandering away from home.
Some of my family did not accept it, and some families don't accept it, but education will help us help our family members. I was able to take care of my mother until she went up to heaven, and it's very hard and painful, but I can see that there is a silence among people, especially among family members. And I work with a lot of Latins, and Latins suffer very much over this. But this silence affects your heart, however, but I think I'm working a lot with a lot of people. And this week I had to work with 4. One was very frustrated because there's no family help. The other one is a member of the church, and she cries and cries, and she doesn't know what to do because her mother is over at her country. And as we're teaching this education about this and this process, and it's something that needs to reach our family members.
I just work with the Burmese community in Worcester, a small group, and my colleague Tracy, she worked with the Vietnamese community. So to ask a back question, in my community, when they hear the word dementia, most people in our community say that the dementia is for really old people, and the dementia is for people who are very forgetful and do not know or remember what they did or what they just said. As some people say in our community say that the person is crazy, something like that. So, this is just small community group. Burmese. Most people are from Thailand and Burma, and I came here as a refugee family. Thank you.
Thank you, Sa. And your comment brings me back to Nia, because that was one of the, Sa is saying there's often a perception that people are very old when they develop dementia. And so I wonder, do you want to make any comment about being a younger person and how you had to deal with people's lack of understanding or lack of awareness that someone can develop dementia when they're younger?
Sure. I agree with Saw and Ms. Arnetta 100%. But coming from a younger perspective, I think that it is more difficult because people do believe that it is an old person's disease, when we know that statistically it shows signs decades even before you are possibly diagnosed.
I'm educating Haitian communities, Latinos community, and Black African communities. Dementia means fear, memory loss, but the most important, I realized that people, they found hope. What Beth just mentioned during her presentation, that research is a good tools to address dementia. And now the community, the Asian community right now are very engaged, motivated to participate in research. And we enroll in 5 kind of research with medical institutions around Boston, and people, they want to know more about that. So I think that's a really very bring hope to the community. It's not about only fear, but they feel they have power to address dementia. They can bring more in clinical trials, they can get more information, and they can share stories and information to other people, their church or their children, and they think about taking decisions on life, as you mentioned, Nia. So make your list, what you want at the end of the life, what you have to focus about. Your financial will be responsible. So that's very grateful that people, they are taking care, or they are taking steps to move forward with dementia, and they can live well.